So every one of us has different, and I just call it talents, right? So that doesn't mean they're expressed yet, but they're talent potentials, and they're not the same. So some people have a genetic predisposition that's strong for empathy. Other people have a strength for cognitive intelligence. Some people have a strong predisposition for creativity in the widest sense. And some people have predispositions for either kinesthetic abilities like sports and dancing and things like that, or having practical skills. And like with any genetic predisposition, we need gene expression, right? We need somehow allow these genes to express themselves. And I know that some people get a little confused about this metaphor, but you need to build talent or skills based on your genetic predisposition of talents. And here is a better image for that. So in the seed, so to speak, you know, when you get conceived, there is all the potential for you to express your talents, and of course, growing into a human being and to learn and to heal awakening. All these potentials, we could say, are embedded in our DNA. And so there are, if you want to use that metaphor, different sizes of roots that need to be nurtured during gestation. So there's a lot happening as our body, our brain develops in our mother's womb, and often things go wrong there. So sometimes there may already be impairments that, you know, limit you to fully live your genetically encoded talents. But let's assume everything went fairly well, then you get born. And first there is just a natural physical and brain development, and there is something called experience expected learning. So your brain in the first 0 to 12 years expects to get impulses from outside so that the brain can develop and learn language, and can learn to see, and can learn to hear, and can learn to feel, and to smell and to taste. So if these outer impulses are not there in sufficient ways, then the brain just doesn't develop correctly. And there's a process called pruning, where unused connections in the brain get pruned, get deleted, so to speak, so that there is room for new, more useful connections to be created. So it's very fascinating what happens in this nurture part. And then it starts maybe with 3 or 4. And goes into, of course, any age. There's something called experience-dependent learning, where the brain learns skills that are not necessary for survival. It doesn't expect to learn certain things like playing the piano or playing chess or making wheels or whatever. So these are, that skill development is, of course, has changed over hundred thousands of years, and is more voluntary in a way, unless it gets imposed on us from outside, from other people. And then when we practice many, you know, our skills, then also certain parts of the neuronal connections get myelinated. They get a sheath around it, an insulation around it, and they fire up to 1,000 times faster than if there is no sheath. And so that's what people wrongly called muscle memory until whatever, 10, 20 years ago, because it felt the brain isn't doing, like when we play piano or ride a bicycle or something, it happens automatically. So the memory of how to do this must be in the muscles, but it's really just these myelated connection in the brain that fire much faster than our conscious mind can follow them. And then from there, when we develop the skills that are aligned with our natural talent, we usually get into either professions or feel callings towards creating more beauty in the world, or creating more function in the world, or creating more truth in the world, or creating more goodness in the world, again, in the widest sense. And unfortunately, most people either don't have the opportunity to develop skills and get into really living and expressing their natural talents. And I'm one of these people who had an early talent and felt very strongly drawn to playing music, and also I love to cook. But my father was an electrician, so he really, didn't support it at all. He totally discouraged or even forbade me to play music and wanted me to learn so I can become an electrical engineer like him. And then once I was old enough to exert myself and to really follow my passion, it was a little bit beyond the window where it is easiest to develop the skills in order to live our purpose. So that happened for me later in life. And I never got any degrees or went to school for that. I'm just self-taught in anything that I'm doing now. And so most people, they just live their biological purpose. It's about 80 or 90% of the population, maybe a little bit depending where we are. People live their biological purpose, and then some people awaken to their growth purpose, specifically when they start to ask deeper questions, what is the meaning of life and what am I here to do, and things like that. And some people also awaken to their transcendental purpose, so like a spontaneous spiritual awakening. And I think it's about, it's less than 10% for sure, people who live their transcendental purpose. So when people ask these questions, what am I here to do and what is my purpose? The purpose guides invariably notice that there are often psychological blocks, that there is like these voices, are you crazy? You cannot change your life completely and bad things will happen. And so they suggest first that we address these blocks such as fear, shame, negative self-talk, deeply rooted behavior patterns, and things like that, because obviously your brain and yourself, if you haven't lived your transcendental purpose, develop different skills and a different self-identity, and thinking about purpose can deeply challenge our self-identity. And so first we need to deal with the psychological blocks. And this will also be true for the next module in attracting our soulmate. Again, there's usually a lot of blocks around even attempting that. And so there are once we remove these blocks, there are 4 different types of methods of discovering our transcendental purpose. One is called the Autobiographical Method. And the first one is for people to think back what activities and experience made them happy, joyful, fulfilled, successful, being in the flow of life over extended periods of time, by asking these questions. When was life most meaningful? When did it feel passionate and fulfilled? When did you feel most aligned? When were there experiences of synchronicities and serendipity? So that's often, when we maybe have a hobby or we just engaged in certain activities for a while and we felt, wow, that makes me feel much more alive than what I normally do in my life. And the question is often then, follow your bliss or follow what makes you feel alive. So the absent method is used for if you cannot really remember a time where you feel you were really thriving in life and felt alive and experienced bliss and joy. And also, I call it absent method because people in this stage often want to absent absences. They want to make something existent that doesn't exist, bring something novel into the world. And so we can feel back as far as possible to the root or into our soul, if you want to use that word, or our genetic programming. And so like indirectly see what people where you did you feel drawn to as a child? You know, who inspired you? Who did you feel, oh, I want to become like this person? That maybe be a pointer. And what could you express of your natural talents and what not? So, you know, did you want to do sports and somebody told you, don't do that, right? Do something else, develop some other skills. What pains you the most about the world? So instead of following your bliss, in this method, you follow your pain. Right? Where is there injustice or lack of love or a lack of functioning or a lack of beauty in the world, then where do you feel called to absent that absence? And what is your vision and contribution for a better world? So that's the absent method or indirect method. And then I discovered two more methods. One I call ego transcending method. And that's basically asking the question, who are you if you're not your body, your conditioned thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, not your experiences? What is alive in you right now in this moment without pain of the past or fear of the future? Or as Lao Tzu said, do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? Can you remain unmoving till the right action arises by itself? So this is also not a new idea, this ego transcending method, but to be increasingly present in the moment and out of this stillness, listen to maybe a small voice or a small impulse where you do something or feel drawn or called to something that is not conditioned from your past, but is deeply connected to your natural talent, or if you want to use the word, your soul. And then finally, we have ego affirming methods. And the questions there are, what are your limiting beliefs about yourself and how God or the universe wants to work through you? What are you afraid of to fully shine your light into the world? And who are you not to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? And this is based on the idea that there is a telos, a spirit, you know, it's embedded sort of like in some kind of drive that we automatically move towards more goodness, truth, beauty, and functionality if we're just getting our fears and our limitations out of the way to let God or the universe manifest through us. And interestingly enough, that approach is promoted by females, while all the other three approaches that we looked at earlier are promoted by males. So Marianne Williamson is a notorious promoter of this idea, and also Jean Houston. And here are the books, and Jean Houston offers online courses that are mainly attended by females.